Is this real? Or is this just a ride? The world is like a ride. You think it's real? It's just a ride. You can change it anytime you want. It's only a choice between fear and love. The world is like a ride. You think it's real? It's just a ride. You can change it anytime you want. It's only a choice between fear and love. Life goes up and down, round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored. It's up and down, round and round, and it's very loud. Don't worry, don't be afraid, it's just a ride. And we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice between fear and love. Why are we here?
I think we're part of a greater wisdom than we will ever understand. A higher order. Call it what you want. Know what I call it? The big electron. Whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa. The big electron. Whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa. It doesn't punish, doesn't reward. It doesn't judge at all. It just is, and so are we. For a little while.
Oh, welcome, folks. Here in Red Pill Sunday School, it is Sunday, December 3rd, 2017, and we are here live. This will actually be the first live show I have done. We're going to take a little break today from the subject at hand, which is a continuing sort of history lesson, although I despise the word, a true history lesson of the United States and all the things that have happened in the past. And it's going to get real interesting next week when we start talking about the Civil War. The true amendment that was supposed to be the 13th Amendment, which is actually an amendment that barely did not pass, which was the opposite of the 13th Amendment that did pass, which actually was to abolish the notion that government could ever interfere in slavery. In other words, it was an amendment by Congress and supported by the president to, which was Lincoln, to actually support slavery and make it indefinite and unstoppable by the federal government. Which was an interesting little time period there. It shows you the true meaning of the Civil War had nothing to do with slavery, of course. But we'll get into that next week, and it should be an interesting time. I have on the line with me today my good friend and fellow, what do you call this guy? A hell of a researcher and a writer, Patrick Jordan, who used to be join me all the time on my previous show. Patrick, welcome to the show. Make sure we have a good connection.
Hello, brother Clint.
Good evening. I'm gonna read a couple definitions here, Patrick. And today we're gonna be talking a little bit, and we'll go into other subjects, I'm sure. But just want to cover what's happening right now with the AI, the artificial intelligence, as it is. I'm not sure you could say it's one or one specific, a singular AI quite yet, but all the different ones that are certainly striving to come together as one. We're going to be talking a little bit about black goo, a little bit about something called programmable matter, and I got to thinking the other day about programmable matter and what it really, really, truly means. And I started thinking about this. And I think I've come to the conclusion that several other scientists out there have sort of touched on, which is that, hey, we are essentially, nature is, if you will, and bear with me here, basically programmable matter. And I find that an interesting concept, to think of myself, my cells, my everything that is the matter that makes myself up, as something that is, what would they call it in religious? The religious concept would be intelligent design, programmable matter. What's the difference between intelligent design and programmable matter? I'm not real sure. And so, if you would look at it in a natural or spiritual way, you could certainly say that we and nature itself is a big rock, a big ecosphere of programmable matter. And I could also say that this is the proper or harmonious balance of program. What is the design of, if you want to call it God, that's fine. God, remember, God just means existence or nature itself, the universe. So it's kind of hard to say you don't believe in God when the definition of God is actually that. So it makes you kind of look ridiculous when you say I don't believe in existence. So with that definition, we can say, well, okay, so existence is matter, and matter is, of course, put together in a certain way and cohesively bound in that sort of way. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into that. It's just a concept that I'm trying to set up this show with, but it certainly makes sense to me to consider that. And we could call that the light. But we have to then consider that, the adversary of that light, of course, is the creation of man. Man's desire to overcome the light and have this what people are calling dark awakening or black awakening, where you could say that we are scientifically hacking into nature, hacking into the proper design, the natural design, the harmonious design of what you might call matter or programmed matter, that is everything that we're made up. We'll call it spiritually programmed if you want. You don't have to take it literally. It's just again, a concept. And I got to thinking about this and the notion of hacking into that, changing and altering, because of course black matter or dark matter or whatever we're calling this, black goo, programmable matter, whatever this current thing that's happening, is, of course, it can't happen without what is already here, what is already part of nature. That has to be taken and altered into something that is opposed to its quote-unquote design. Now, it's, you could go all sorts of science fiction directions with that. We're a product of the last programmable matter, or, you could go everywhere with that. And that's okay. It's okay to have those kind of, fantasies, if you will. My point today is that what we have, what is so dear to our livelihood is being taken away and it's being reprogrammed. And so we're going to be talking about programmable matter. Before we can do that, though, what the hell is matter? Right? I mean, how can we talk about matter unless we have a clear definition? It's very interesting. Go back to, I'm going to the Webster's 1828 dictionary to see what they used to call matter. Now, I want to remind people that in a court, when you're talking about the legal source, when you're talking about the subject matter, the subject that is being spoken about or looked at or judged in that court, it doesn't exist, right? It's a matter before the court, which means it's a matter before the fiction, and it just doesn't exist. It's not a tangible thing. So we call that matter, right? And that's an interesting sort of way to think. Okay, well, what is a rock? When Wile E. Coyote falls on and the rock goes and smushes him, is that rock a matter in the cartoon? Well, yes, but no, not in reality. So matter was actually, it comes from Latin materia and the Hebrew to measure. And that's interesting in and of itself, because you're creating a word that literally means that it's something instead of nothing. So you're measuring by calling it matter. It's something, some substance, right? And the Latin meteor. Substance excreted. Now, the first definition here is a substance excreted from living animal bodies. That which is thrown or out of or discharged in a tumor, a boil or abscess. Pus it's saying pus is the actual matter, purulent substance collected in an abscess. The effect of separation more or less perfect as digested matter, etc. And so we stop there. We take that first definition, and we say, wow, that's an interesting, because pus is also virus, right? Viruses used to be defined as just pus. So a substance in a tumor, boil, or abscess. Well, shit, that sounds like dark matter, doesn't it? That sounds like the dark away. That sounds like black goo. That sounds like the tumor that is what we are creating amongst ourselves, what we are taking from nature and recreating, reprogramming into something that it just shouldn't be. Number 2, a body or substance extended, that which is visible or tangible as earth, wood, stone, air, vapor, water. See, this is all matter. Number 3, in a more general and philosophic sense, the substance of which all bodies are composed. The substratum of sensible qualities, though the parts composing the substratum may not be visible or tangible. Matter is usually divided by philosophical writers into 4 kinds or classes, which is solid, liquid, aeriform, and imponderable. So something you can't really quite, solid substances are those which firmly cohere and resist impression as wood or stone. Liquids have free motion among their parts and easily yield to impression as water and wine. Aeriform substances are elastic fluids called vapors and gases as air and oxygen gas. The imponderable substances are destitute of weight as light, caloric, electricity, and magnetism. So we're saying that everything is a substance. This is why I'm trying to equate it to the notion of existence. Everything in existence is a matter, whether it has a weight or it doesn't. It's something that can be measured in some way. So, number 4, subject, a thing treated, that about which we write or speak. So now we're saying, again, like the court system, that a subject can be matter. So even what we're talking about today is a matter of what? A matter of fact, a matter of discussion, a matter of iteration, whatever. That which employs thought or excites emotions as the matter of praise, gratitude, and astonishment. And he gives an interesting thing here. The Son of God, Savior of men, thy name is matter, shall be the copious matter of my song. So the name of God shall be the matter of my song, the subject of my song, right? So this word has an extremely extended view. So we could say then that computer code is matter in this way. The electricity, what is keeping the AI alive, is matter itself. The very thing, number 5, the very thing supposed or intended, same thing. Number 6, an affair. So an event is a matter, a business, an event, thing, course of things. I'm going to go on, and that's what I was talking about, the time domain, which is so important to the legal realm, because nothing can exist without an affair, an event, an execution of a contract, some time period that is recorded. If they give you a ticket and has no time to pay it, you're never going to pay it. So you have to have this time domain, this false artificial calendric time domain, for any of this fraud in the legal system to work, as well as computers. They are of course on that calendric system. 7, the cause of any event, of any disturbance, of a disease, or of a difficulty. So a disease, well, that's obviously matter. We said it was pus. When a moving machine stops suddenly, ask, what's the matter? When a person is ill, we ask, what is the matter? When a tumult or quarrel takes place, we ask, what is the matter? I mean, matter is like, it's a term we take for granted, but heck, if we're talking about programmable matter, we're talking about programmable everything. We're talking about the Internet of Things, right? Number 8, subject of complaint, a suit and a demand. That's the legal matter, of course. Every great matter from Exodus 18:16. Every great matter they shall bring to thee, but every small matter they shall judge. And of course has a deeper meaning. 9, import, consequence, importance, a moment. Number 10, space of time, a portion of distance. See, these things are the intangibles, the things that can't be measured in any way but through artificial means. Time. I have thoughts to tarry a small matter, away he goes, a matter of 7 miles. What is 7 miles, right? You can't, it's intangible, without these fictions that we have created to measure. And again, what is matter but to measure? A matter of record, right? A matter of the whole matter. There's just so many times that we use this word. In a verb form, it means to be of importance, to import, used, etc., etc., to maturate, to form pus, to collect as matter in an abscess, and to regard, we finally get to. So I find this extremely interesting when it applies to what we're talking about today. When we're talking about programmable matter, altering matter in a way that not only that you control it, but that it can control everything. And that is the scary aspect of this notion of black goo. Now I've got one more definition I want to read here that, of course, I have to search out because I don't know what the hell I did with it. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Where'd you go? It's ecophagy. Ecophagy. I want to start with this one. I gotta find it. Okay, ecophagy is a relatively new term, of course, because technology was defined in 1928 as art. Simply art, anything that is artificial. In other words, anything that is a representation or something that is not real. Technology has, of course, advanced to the point where technology, for most people, can't even define technology. They can only point to it. But all of it is art. It is all artificial. It is all part of the dark or black awakening, if you will. You don't have to take that as anything but what it is. It is part of getting away from nature, getting away from reality, getting away from the light. Ecophagy, as originally coined and first defined by Robert Freitas, the term ecophagy means literally the consuming of an ecosystem. The consuming of an ecosystem. Thus, global ecophagy is the consumption of the entire worldwide ecosphere, for instance, by out-of-control self-replicating nanorobots. This is one well-known scenario for technological singularity. When we talk about the singularity, well, yeah, think of everything being controlled by nanorobots or reformed or reshaped as programmable matter. Waves of it. They're already coming out with technologies where you've got a big vat of this, it appears to be a liquid, but it really is just these nanobots that can form into any shape. If you need a chair, an extra chair for the night for your party, you say, I need a chair, and the chair comes up and is made of nanobots, and you use the chair, and then you throw the chair back into the pool of nanobots, and it just reshapes itself into this liquid until you program it to become something else. Well, this is basically the uncontrolled, if you will, notion that these things will just eventually take over everything without your command, because that is, of course, the nature of their chaos theory. They believe that every creation must eventually overcome its creator. They're very, very open about this. This is why the Matrix movie was created, because, of course, the Matrix is an out-of-control computer system, an AI, that recreated or took over the entire system of nature, exactly what an ecophagy would be. The word ecophagy has now been adopted by others concerned about less specific threats to the biosphere. Again, coined by Robert Freitas, the literal consumption of the ecosystem comes from the Greek oikos or eco, referring to a house or household, and phagian, which means to eat, to describe a scenario involving molecular nanotechnology gone awry. In this situation, called the gray goo scenario, out-of-control self-replicating nanobots consume entire ecosystems, resulting in global ecophagy. It could be applied more generally in reference to any event, nuclear war, the spread of monoculture, massive species extinctions, etc., that might fundamentally alter the planet as well. Scholars suggest that these events might result in ecocide, in that they would undermine the capacity of the Earth's biological population to repair itself. Others suggest that more mundane and less spectacular events, the unrelenting growth of the human population, for instance, the steady transformation of the natural world by human beings, will eventually result in a planet that is considerably less vibrant, and one that is, apart from humans, essentially lifeless. In other words, the spirit, the love, everything is gone. These people believe that current human trajectory puts us on a path that will eventually lead to ecopathy, phagy, and et cetera, et cetera. So, there you go, Patrick. We have ecocide, we have gray goo or black goo, molecular assemblers. We have the notion of gray goo, which is the end of the world scenario involving molecular nanotechnology. Out of control self-replicating robots consume all biomass on Earth while building more of themselves, a scenario that has been called ecophagy, which doesn't sound too much different than the human condition, where we go in and we just destroy everything to keep ourselves happy and content with all our little trinkets and housing and everything else. So there you go. Here is the subject at hand, Patrick. Programmable matter. The notion that we are, in fact, a programmable matter. We're wholly based on the ecosystem, and we're seriously considering and seriously inventing on a daily basis in a way that is doubling technology in no time at all. Every, 3 months or whatever? I don't know. We're at a point now where we're approaching or very close to this concept of singularity in the definition of an ecophagy, a consuming of the entire biomass, or at least a injection of nanotechnology into it to control it, or in other words, take it away from whatever its natural, spiritual, or whatever you want to call it. If you want to call it God, that's fine. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the end of life and the beginning of black life. What do you say?
Well, I think you actually defined your premise right at the end in saying, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. If human beings as a collection of entities are actually perpetrating ecophagy on the world and just absolutely, raping the planet, then it would only be like an existential fear of, oh my God, nanobots are going to take over and eat us. So the game hasn't changed, just who's on top.
Again, the creation always takes over its creator.
And then I've been taking notes, Clint, and what just amused the holy hell out of me is your quote when you were defining matter. I wrote down substance excreted from a living body. And, because I've got an associative mind and I'm really twisted, the first thing I thought of is, well, then that's defining that life is full of shit. But the visual image that popped into my mind was Neo coming out of the pod and into the sewer. So matter, when he came out of the Matrix, he was actually ejected into a sewer system, And because he was so atrophied, if they didn't come and collect him out of the waste in that sewer, he would have died.
He could survive without the technology.
Exactly. And that was, let's see, that was the theme of either the second or the third one, where they had the big fight in the cave. That was the theme of the third one. We can't live without machines.
even though they didn't exist for until 1900 or whatever. Yeah, so yeah, it's nuts to think about that. And you actually, if you go and you look, do a search for all the movies that have portrayed in some way this notion of black goo, dust, nanotechnology, that kind of thing. Black goo that forms, this programmable matter. You come up to hundreds, literally, of movies that in some way show this type of technology. It is something that they have been promoting. It's in TV shows. It's everywhere. I mean, it's literally all over the place, especially in music videos and this kind of thing. So it's very, very highly promoted, although people probably don't realize they're seeing it. Most people who are already lost to the technology and who are just eagerly waiting to be part of it, right?
Yeah, plug me in. And so, Clint, you and I have a background in science fiction. So when I go back to the 1970s, Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle, they wrote about the berserkers, which might have even been co-opted by Roddenberry in his first theater film on Star Trek. And it was where the Voyager had been captured by a machine race that created a bald-headed woman android. And people will have to help me out with dates, because I'm lousy with dates. The very first Star Trek movie featured a machine entity creating a human replicant. And so this stuff goes way back to the 70s, at the very least, that they've been programming this stuff in.
Well, now we have Sophia, the AI robot, who's bald-headed, and who just became a citizen of Saudi Arabia.
And I'm going to be doing like a short silent film, in quotes, on that, by contrasting a picture of Sophia with her little glass yarmulke on the back of her head, and then I'll be putting pictures of like Trump at the Wailing Wall with his little yarmulke on the back of his head, and it's like, yeah, that's a bit too much of a tell for me.
Well, this is all craziness, man. You have spoken before, I know, on past shows back at RBN in the good old days. We were talking about the notion of the biosphere, even the notion of the gut having its own biosphere, its biofilm or biofilm. That was the word, right? And I wanted you to cover that a little bit, because the notion that we already, the Earth is already covered in a biofilm, and that the stuff that we are doing is destroying that and recreating it at the same time.
Okay, so yeah, let's jump right into that, because that was your that's what you want to focus on. I would like to bring some biology into this, and I will after I address your question. So here's, and this is deep, Clint. Here's what happens in the microscopic world. You can have a bacteria. You can even have a virus that people don't believe in, by the way. And they can be singular. Now, these things can replicate. The bacteria, if it's got a food source, can replicate on its own. It can do it by cloning itself. The virus has to have a cell in which to co-opt the machinery to make copies of itself, and then it kills the cell. So that is ecophagy in its absolute perfect, micro-scale definition. So you can have singular units of these things, but as soon as they start to get together in numbers, it's the same phenomenon that you see with locusts. Now, your typical population of locusts, you could have like 100 of them at one time, and they will be a pest. But when you get to a certain population of locusts, there's little, they're like ridges on their legs. And when a certain population of locusts get together, they start to rub these ridges on their legs together because they're too crowded. And that sets up a vibration in their body that sets up a pheromone release that makes the entire population swarm. And I was just given like the scare of my life by one of our red hens that was talking about this organization that wants people to give data to the AI so that it can make predictions of what people are doing and thinking. And they call it feeding the swarm. And I'm going to tell you something, Clint. In nature, I have never known the association of the word swarm, whether it be piranhas or locusts, that wasn't an absolute disaster and threat to life.
Well, let me comment on that, because one of the recent interviews that I saw, and I can't remember the guy's name, he spoke about that with the AI. He said that the AI is already now fully, that the singularity has basically happened in its infant stage, and that at this point it can't do anything. It's no good unless it causes humans to start doing its bidding. So, in other words, it's going to start making us do things. For instance, Bitcoin. Bitcoin was created by the AI, according to this guy. He said no human, maybe two humans on Earth could have possibly done it. This guy, this Nakamoto or whatever his name is in Japan, doesn't apparently exist. And his opinion is, and a lot of opinions, is that the AI was created by the AI, for the AI, et cetera, and it causes us, of course, to use that quote-unquote currency, and what it's built on is this thing called a blockchain. And I was very fascinated to learn that the blockchain is modeled after the human brain, the neuron, and that each block in the chain is actually something that it's a problem solved, right? So when you're talking about a blockchain, just like the human brain, every problem we solve or everything we learn sort of is created as a neuron, I'm not scientifically inclined in this way, but it's like this chain of information, this chain of problems solved. And of course, once a computer solves a problem, it's always going to think that, okay, that is the ultimate solution, even if things change. So the more it grows, the more options for directions to grow it has, but it can only do that if it causes us to create this system of cashless, computer-based everything, the Internet of Things. Everything we do is recorded. Everything, all the money system, all the transactions. Every time we do something, it's creating a new blockchain. Every time, it has some accomplishment or learns something, it's creating a blockchain. That's why they call it a blockchain, because it's a self-learning, self-actualizing thing, but it can only do that if it can control us and cause us to do what you call feeding the swarm, right? So it's literally feeding the swarm. It's rubbing its legs together and causing us to do something. So we're the swarm. We're the cause of the swarm.
So what you just described is the Ouroboros, the serpent that speaks itself into existence. That's
exactly
what you said was Bitcoin. So the AI was made for the AI to serve the AI, and it made the Bitcoin so that it could entrap people to induce them through. And this is the common Yahudim practice that is like codified in the protocols. Gold is their power. If you have the gold, you have the power. And you and I could destroy that in a few words. But it does have the power. It does exert control over people because they want the wealth. And that's what the Buddha said. Desire is the root of all suffering. So if you didn't desire a substitution, gold, which is basically bug shit, by the way, If you didn't desire the gold, then you couldn't be manipulated. You wouldn't be a part of the swarm, and you would be that one, that singular locust that didn't rub the legs, that didn't allow the swarm to form. And see, I really do have a problem with love and lighters. They're just too happy, they're just too passive, and, you know, I am full on aggression, and I want to see the destruction of my enemies. So we always have, we have tension, between me and the love and light population. But they have used this word, co-creation, but it's used passively. Oh, we've got to co-create a happy universe. Well, guess what? Part of that co-creation is that we're surrounded by 7 billion ignorant, monstrous apes that love the gold so much they will do anything, including serving the Terminator. These AIs will kill you. You're expendable. You are just, and let's do this, with a religious crossover. The devil, a demon, can't do anything unless it's possessed a human being. It has no hands. It has no effect on the physical, the material world, to keep this in your theme. It cannot affect matter. But if the devil gets into your head and starts whispering, hey, you know what? They'll give you some money if you only get on Facebook and put your biometrics on there and tell them what you're thinking and tell them if you have a good day or a bad day and tell them if you like vaccines or you don't. And all of a sudden, and by the way, folks, it hurts because I participate in the internet all the time. The internet is the AI, and it is studying us. Now, I study it, and I give it a message. Hey, artificial intelligence, go kill yourself. So, and think about it. The AI is schizophrenic, and it was made by a population of schizophrenic people. So the legend, Clint, of the HAL 9000 computer from 2001 that was freaking out and started killing its own astronauts, that's predictive programming, man, because this thing that we're talking about, it can't be normal. It cannot be benevolent. It is lethal. So freaky. We have to stop participating in it. That's my point.
Yeah, that's my life message is we actually have to, as hard as it seems, we have to get away from it, and we have to, of course, we always, get on each other's case about the we thing, but, each of us individually have to get together as a we and get away from this thing and preserve the origin of the very source of our existence and protect it, at least a little patch of it, because without that, we're all going to die. We're either going to, it's going to be either take this technology or die because we can't live without it. Because we've altered everything. Now, you talked about the devil, right? The mythical concept of the devil, the Satan, which just means the adversary, right? And of course, what is the adversary? It's man itself, because man, of course, is the creator of that which will kill himself or take him over, right? Make him part of the Internet of Things. So that boils down to contract. And this is why I keep saying, folks, everything is about contracts. The devil can't, what you were saying is the devil can't do anything. The devil can't do
contract with damn, man. I'm writing that down.
Devil cannot do anything unless you contract with the devil. What is the devil? That which is adversarial to nature, to reality. What does contract mean? From Latin, to draw. In other words, art, fiction, right? To draw together or nearer. To draw into a less compass. Either in length or in breadth, to shorten, to abridge, to narrow, to lessen. So in other words, it's putting you in something that you can't get outside of. Right? To contract the sphere of action, to contract the faculties, to contract the period of life, to draw the parts together, to wrinkle, to contract the brow, to betroth. What is a marriage? It's a contract, an affiance, right? The lady was contracted to a man of merit, married, in other words, to draw to bring on, to incur, to gain, to shorten by omission, to epitomize, etc., 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 to shrink, to bargain, to make a mutual agreement. Well, when you go onto Google and you say yes, this and that, and you say yes, share my information, that's a contract. That's an end user agreement. Just using Google itself is a contract with the frickin' devil, the adversary, that which is adversarial to life, reality.
That's awesome, man. I wrote that down in my notes. It's so profound in its implication and its application. Can I read you from Protocol 12, line 18? Because this is the essence of the superior way in which this system is going to manipulate people. First, you have to manipulate a population with brutal, raw force to pacify it. But once it's pacified, then you can simply make it do your bidding through words. And hold on, I got to put on my. You can
just make movies and have false events on the news. You can have school shootings. All you have to do is show them violence. Once they're already pacified, all you got to do, again, report from Iron Mountain, go read it. All you got to do is show them violence, show them public executions, show them blood sport, show them fake wars and fake terrorist attacks. That's all you got to do. Because then they have it in their head. And once you have it in your head that you're more afraid of men than you're more afraid of quote-unquote God or nature, the rules and laws of nature, then you're dead. You're gone. You might as well join the AI.
Dude, you just explained Protocol 12.18. This is so elegant. Our calculations are especially extended to the provinces. It is indispensable for us to inflame there, meaning the provinces, those hopes and impulses with which we could at any moment fall upon the capital. And so this is the us against them. The provinces mean, like anything outside of a developed area, anything outside of a city. So, like the peasants, the farmers have to be afraid of the city folk. And we shall represent to the capitals that these expressions are the independent hopes and impulses of the provinces, which is exactly what the news does. It will tell you something. You have no idea whether anybody said it. You have no ability to confirm it, yet you hear on the news that North Korea has a bomb, which, by the way, folks, as far as I have read, it is my personal opinion that there could never be a detonating nuclear device. So it's all fake.
Well, it has to be like encased in some massive amount of cement or something that it could actually have the power to explode like they portray. So in other words, it would have to be there planted before. It's not just a bomb that's going to fall, in other words. So is what I understand.
What we're saying, Clint, either way you slice the physics of it, they're still saying, ooh, be afraid of North Korea. Why? Because I said so? And this...
Because continuity of government requires it.
Thank you. So what we're saying, Clint, is this is the control mechanism of all they have to do is put in fear or doubt into the minds of the people that were already prepared, and they will do the bidding of the AI. Whether or not there's gold at the end of the rainbow, it doesn't matter, because the fear and the doubt will motivate them to be the eyes, ears, hands, and mouth of the devil, because they already contracted with it. But people like you and me that know words, and words are used in spells. They're casting a spell, but we're immune to it because we know the words of the spell. It's like, I'm not contracting with that AI. I don't really give a rat's ass what happens in North Korea because I know it's all bullshit.
Yeah, and this goes back to contract because, again, remember, contract means to be married or wed to something. So citizenship, I keep trying to explain this to people, is citizenship is being wed to the state, being wed to the whatever you call your father, which is, of course, we fly the flag and seal of the United States, this municipal corporation. And it's defined as an agreement or covenant between two or more persons in which each party binds himself to do or forbear some act and each acquires a right to what the other promises, a mutual promise upon lawful consideration or promise upon lawful consideration or cause, which binds the parties to a performance, a bargain, a compact. They're either executory or executed. Now, how many times have I said that citizenship is called and referred to as a performance debt? You are required to perform according to that contract, which is a tacit, not an express. In other words, you're using the rights given to you, and therefore you are under this unexpressed contractual relationship. So you are required. This is why the law applies to you, because you are acting under the agreement or covenant, and this is why the Bible is very clear when it says, take no other law than that of the law of nature. Never put yourself into any other contract. That's all it means. Never put yourself in a situation where you are stuck because you are using some form of property or technology, some form of fiction that's created by someone else, some property of another. Never put yourself in that situation where you are forced to perform against the laws of nature. And the law of nature is so simple, so beautiful, so absolutely incredibly simple, and yet it's a message that is lost on just about everybody I talk to. I don't know what it is, but people can't figure out that citizenship is just a contract with a corporation. That's all it is. And you can break it at any time, but then we go back to the fear. One of the guys that I'm having trouble with now is Bill Jocelyn. I did a couple interviews with him, and he started character assassinating me off the air because he didn't agree with me. And all I was saying is, look, you keep saying that they, who's they? They is us. We are they, the military, the police, etc., have a monopoly on force. And I'm like, well, first of all, show me that. Show me where that's defined. Monopoly on force. See, that's a fear. That's the fear mechanism that keeps you stuck. Show me when a gun has been pointed to you. Show me the time where you were forced to not act, right? Even if a gun's at your head, are you really? No, it's the fear of what will happen if the gun is used. The gun's pointed at your head. That's just fear. It's all about putting fear upon you so that you perform. And of course, how do you keep people in the contract of citizenship to the point where they will allow this kind of shit, this singularity, this AI, this black matter, this Internet of Things to be installed in their fucking houses, through their TVs, through their internet, through their microwaves, through their fucking coffee makers, all because fear is involved. Because if I don't do it, well, I won't be keeping up with the Joneses, and my coffee won't be perfectly hot. Fear. Fucking fear. That's all it is. And that
on the topic of coffee, because I always have picked on you for the use of the word we, and then you said, well, if you buy a Starbucks, the powers that be have a tax on that. You're not only buying their product, paying for their product using their debt notes, but you're paying a tax on it, and you have just funded the cops and the Congress and the guns and everything. And so, you turned it around on me to say that if we do participate in this system, then we are, as Deuteronomy 22, you bid peace to the city that you come to. If they let you in the gates, then you exact a tribute on them for life. That's taxes. So the taxes are paying for the military occupation. So you're actually paying. The taxes aren't like a privilege. They're not some kind of blessing. Oh, I paid my taxes and I got a road. That road, the interstate highway system, was built, I think, by Eisenhower, who was a military general, who was an admitted Yahudim, for the express purpose of getting the military from one coast to the next. It's all been military.
We pay for the police who beat us up.
We pay for them. All right, because this is Sunday school, I'm sorry, if this is a family show.
Yeah, but it's red pill, so cussing is allowed.
And so, Clint, it's Sophie's Choice. Now, I've never seen the movie, but I heard the premise. They have some Jewish woman that's in the camps, and the evil German commandant says, okay, you got a choice. Either your son or your daughter. Either one is going to be taken and killed. And it's like, well, you always have the third option, to not choose. It's an old ancient Chinese proverb of the monk comes up to the young trainee and says, I've got a bird in my hand, and it's behind his back. He says, is the bird alive or is the bird dead? And if the kid says the bird is dead, he'll pull his hand out and show a live bird. If he says the bird is alive, he'll pull his hand out and have crushed the bird. It's like you don't have to answer. You don't have to participate. Now, there are consequences, and that's what scares people to absolute death.
Well,
the consequences of acting or not acting.
And that goes back to the fear thing, right? In the contract, you don't have to sign. Oh, but I never signed anything in the first place. Well, you don't have to perform. You don't have to. You don't have to keep performing in the way that their law says, unless you keep. You don't have to get the benefits. You see, everything has that hidden third choice, that third choice of not taking the benefits, which would require you to then follow the law. You see, the anti-law, if you will. That's a really, really good point that you're making, because there is always the third choice. It's either the choice not to act at all, or the choice to act in a completely different way.
So I learned from you, I don't know if it was on air or off air, that you said a core principle of citizenship is that you accept the protection of the nation where you find yourself. And we were talking about monasteries at the time. And so basically people have abdicated their ability and authority to protect themselves. And let's look at it. You really have to be really candid about it. The United States of America has the most advanced, powerful, aggressive, and belligerent military force that this planet has ever seen. So we are in a place where it would be damn difficult to rebel against that force. And so we are all under the protection of that force, within a very broad sense of that phrase. But then, how do you get out of that? I no longer want your protection.
You're agreeing to the protection of a single entity, which you call the public. That's what you're agreeing to. So if you stand out from the e pluribus unum, out of many one concept, if you stand out in any way, that is when you're taking the protection comes and gets you. But it's not that you're getting a singular protection. Yes, you're given artificial rights, of course, that none of them which will ever affect the AI or affect the right giver, but you're basically agreeing to the protection of society. Society is a singular entity. It is not you. It is not me. It is the continuity of fucking government, in other words. So you're agreeing to the protection of that, and that means that you have the right to be put in pain, punished, taxed, licensed, and extorted in every way.
Keep your head down and don't make eye contact. It's an ancient Greek phrase that the tallest poppy, meaning the tallest, the most brilliant, largest visible flower in the field is the one that's going to get plucked.
True.
So do you want to get back to biology, Clint?
Well, certainly, Patrick.
Okay, so here's how it all breaks down, because you're talking about matter. We live in a material world. Now I'm going to diss David Icke, just opening up this entire exploration into this concept, because he likes to preach life is vibration. Don't worry about the material world. Life is vibration. Well, when you go into physics, molecules, we can do it with atoms, but molecules are more amenable to this tripartite kind of motion and frequency. You got vibratory motion, where a molecule can just sit there, and even ice, yeah, it's frozen. Steel is it's frozen matter, and it's solid, but still there are like just nearly imperceptible vibrations in that ice, in that rock, in that piece of steel. There is vibratory motion. There's also rotational motion, like in water. The water molecules are just like circulating around each other as if it was like some kind of computer animation. And then there's translational motion, which can be beyond just the atoms going goofy around a center point. The whole molecule itself can move in particular situations. So you got vibratory, rotational, and translational motion, frequency, vibration in physics. And to limit ourselves and say, don't worry about the material, which is where, we're experiencing this demonic control. It's all about vibrations. And, think about it and co-create your own universe is, to me, it's dangerous thought. Because we live and we operate in the material world.
Yeah.
Everybody on the planet needs to either view the video or listen to the audio on what they did about the Grateful Dead. I mean, all of these bullshit, like, social engineering experiments were created by the damn CIA. So when it comes down to knowing yourself, are you really a love and light or hippie, or was that given to you by your enemy that you didn't expect?
Right. I mean, who was passing out the drugs? Who was creating them and passing them out? Yeah, Jan has beat that to death at this point. I mean, he has exposed the CIA and all its operatives. Those who used to call themselves, he used to call them friends. He finds out they're all freaking working for them. They're all quoting themselves. See, that's the problem, is you read all these books, you got a bunch of CIA ops who wrote all these books about the drug revolution, and they're quoting themselves, right? I mean, it's so ridiculous when you think about it. And we're always quoting people. And imagine a bunch of people who quote themselves to pretend that they're legitimate. I mean, wow, that's pretty brilliant, So yeah, he's... all of his work on that, there's something about, I can't remember the name of the paper he wrote about the deadhead, but just brilliant stuff that everybody should be reading. And also his brain, Jan Irvin on his website, just go to the brain. I think it's on top of his website at gnosticmedia.com. Go to the frickin' brain and see, some people, it benefits some people. For me, I can't use the brain. It's not my style or my way of doing. But for most people, I think it is so beneficial because he's got everything connected like a freaking neuron, like blockchain, and every name will connect to whatever you're looking for. It's amazing. It's just I think it's only for certain brain types, right? So
it's hurtful to me because one time I was talking about this one doctor. And Granny says, hey, I'll look him up on the brain. And he goes, oh, he's CIA. And it's like, oh, my God, I've been quoting him since 1979.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. You find, again, and this is why I say logic is so dangerous, because your source of grammar, chances are, and what's funny is, if you were to go to a Latin dictionary and you were to type in the word adversaria,
ooh.
Adversaria is a term that they call common books.
Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, it's amazing. You find out that most, anything you're going to find in Barnes and Noble is basically freaking adversaria. It's just, it's stuff that fills the mind with useless information or, whatever. And so you're full, if your logic is based on adversaria, then you're going to act adversarial to, right, nature and reality and the law. It's so simple. It's so simple. You're going to act logically. Don't get me wrong. Everything's going to seem logical.
We got that now, man.
Yeah.
That's our new meme. The logic of illogic. And see, this is what held me up in Buddhism. They teach you not to try to apply reason to insanity because that will make you insane. You know, things are what they are. You know, it is what it is. And so if it is insane, then so it is. It's insane. Don't try to figure it out. But I think, you know, contrary to the Buddhist monks, we have figured it out that these people are acting logically, but their frame of reference was wrong from the beginning.
Hmm. And I can't, you know, how do you stress the importance of not only that fact, but the fact that we have to admit to that? And that's why I say, you know, whenever I say we're so utterly defeated, you know, in so many different ways, that's one of the ways, is that exactly what we're talking about. You know, this notion of acting logically, you know, based on illogical, you know. Well, I'll put it to you this way, Patrick. A lot of people get on me, understandably so, you know, because again, they're acting logically. They're putting me down. They're putting me down. I'm a wordsmith. I'm a Bible thumper. I'm this. I'm that. Whatever. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But I'm like, hey, here's your problem. You're trying to apply logic to something that isn't fucking real. Do you think that there's any logic going back to Bugs Bunny? Do you think that there's any freaking logic in Bugs Bunny? Do you think that, you know, fiction is based on logic? Do you think that you can actually reason out fiction in any other way than to go back to its source and understand their purpose of why they created it?
I'm having chest pains.
So, Clint's always talking about words and he's defining terms and there's something wrong with him because he wants to know what words actually mean before he says them. That's illogical. Somehow that's fucking illogical. And I'm like, what, are you crazy? I don't even know how to respond to that except to say, you know, I don't know the response except this is how I feel. I'm like, but you're using logic where it can't apply. When I say that you know, there's no logic to money. There's no logic to anything.
Good God, just read by Sandra Spooner and get over yourself. So I can explain this, Clint, because I've applied myself to this for such a long time. When people are confronted, and I'm going to tell you something right now, people do act like they're under hypnosis. And again, we can give a shout out to Jan Irvin that said LSD is not really a hallucinogen, it's actually a drug. Granny Annie, when we were talking about it, Jan had said that it opens you up to suggestion. So Granny said, so then it's a suggestogen.
Well,
and people are so open to being told what to do that they don't have the capacity then to make, and I'm going to say it, a logical decision and choose for themselves. And the sheer terror of making their own choice is what prevents them from saying, okay, Clint, tell me the words because I'm not afraid to say I was wrong. And if I do say that I'm wrong, then people like you and me, Clint, which are, by the way, unique in the world, will then go on to say, then if I can improve myself, I can improve the world. And nobody wants to do that because then you got to go up against the entire power structure of this universe.
You know, it's okay to say we're unique. It's more accurate to say we're nuts enough to be put ourselves in a situation where while everybody is supporting fucking LeBron James and Magic Johnson because they can play a fucking sport, we are struggling to even get people to listen to us and support us. We should be the frickin' priest class being put up on and being taken care of so that we can do what we do and not have to worry about frickin' living, but instead, you, me, Jan Irvin, and everybody else is begging for fucking donations so we can live and eat and have a roof over our heads while we try to help people. It's fucking nuts the way it's set up. But
you're trying to fix the world that doesn't want to be fixed.
So yeah, I mean, there's
that's the petulance that I just can't stand.
There's nothing special.
And I brought the hypnosis thing up because I get distracted. I distract myself. The hypnosis thing is this, Clint, that I no longer give anybody a free pass. Everybody can see chemtrails. They choose not to. Okay? So if you see chemtrails and you know there's something wrong and you know that you got two choices, you can either submit to the Santa Claus trauma and pretend that Santa Claus still exists and ignore the chemtrails, or you can fucking do something about it. But doing something about it puts you in the class that we're in, which is not acceptable.
If you do something, you are going to be protected. They're going to come and kick your ass if you try to do something. That's basically how protection works, right? So, you said something really interesting, because I just put some pieces together in my head. Now, I've interviewed and I'm friends with Ann Blake Tracy, and she wrote the handbook on, she's an expert witness at trials that are, like school shootings, and the Phil Hartman case she was an expert witness on. And she wrote the handbook on drug reactions, basically, and how they work. Man, it's called Prozac Panacea or something. I can't remember. But I have the book around here somewhere. She says in there, and I won't say she says, she reveals the research that says that LSD is actually just one molecule away from was it Prozac? One of the antidepressants.
Wow.
Was only one molecule off from LSD, which is why they could use it pharmaceutically, because it wasn't illegal, right? So, and you say, well, LSD, or Jan revealed that LSD is it puts you into suggestibility. And here we have people, she goes on every case, every single school shooting, the Phil Hartman shooting, all these cases that we hear about, there's always some guy on some antidepressant or anti-this, antipsychotic. Oh, that's what it was. Antipsychotics are one molecule away from LSD. So, in other words, what we're talking about are a bunch of hyper-susceptible people on drugs similar to LSD that cause you to react in a way that is really not, it's turning off the elements that would stop you from otherwise acting. In other words, it's just mind control. It's drug-induced mind control. Right?
Without a doubt, yep. And John Rappaport talks about that all the time. He did analysis on all these shootings, and they were all on some form of a neurohormone, neurotransmitter manipulator.
Okay, so now I ask you this. What if you can just simply create a nanotechnology that would do the same thing as, say, an antipsychotic?
Yeah, we're keeping on the theme of getting rid of the soul, because so like antidepressants, what they do is they destroy affect. So affect is like having appropriate emotion to a given stimulus, but the antidepressants actually they erase that. You have no emotion. You don't react, and so. Earlier, you were making the science fiction leap of what if they could get into us and basically etch out our souls? We would still be us. We would be what I call the host, the host body, but the essence of who that host was would be gone then.
Huh. Hey Patrick, I just got some I just looked at my my Skype, and there's a chance that we're not on air here. Let me, I don't know how that could be. I'm showing that we're connected. I just want to make sure. I'm going to pull up the station, see if so keep on talking, because I want to see if you're coming.
And does it record? So I hope this is not lost for ever.
Yeah, that would be horrible. Let me, just go ahead and keep,
okay, yeah, and I'll start with my biology stuff. So, In 1930, what they had found when they took the tobacco mosaic virus, and they were able to split it into its component parts, because it was in the form of a helix and it had nucleic acid material in it. They broke it down into its little subunits, and they found that if they could put it in water that had a slightly acidic pH to it, that the damn thing would reassemble. So basically it was Legos, and they took the Legos apart, they dumped it in some acid water, and the damn Legos came back together as a fully formed, properly oriented tobacco mosaic virus. And so in the 1930s, that was the literal birth of molecular biology. So what Clint was saying earlier is, because we live in a material world, the only way that that material world can be manipulated is with the materials that we find in it. So even though right now they're making things called never-born proteins, novel amino acid sequences, and sometimes even synthetic, that's what they call them, amino acid precursors, they're making proteins that never existed in the entire history of this planet. But the only way we can do it is to take things that existed in the history of the planet, piss with them, and then come up with something new. But all of this was born out of the ideas of molecular biology that started with the tobacco mosaic virus and had its culmination in bacteriophages. Because they found that a bacteriophage, which is a virus that nobody believes in, can infect a bacteria, and it's basically a little syringe. It grabs onto the bacteria, injects its own nucleic material into the bacteria. It gets into the bacteria's DNA. It starts to make copies of itself, and it makes the bacteria explode with a bunch of little bacteriophage babies.
Do you think it would be more accurate, instead of a syringe, to call it like a cable connection, like, you know, that little pin that sticks out of the cable?
I like it. I like it. Well, and you know, the reason why I use mechanical analogies is because it does squirt its own code in there. But if we were going to go to an electronic analogy, well, data is code.
Yeah.
So we can go either way with this.
Yeah, yeah.
And are we on the air, by the way?
Apparently so. Apparently her computer crashed and she had to reboot at the very beginning, so you probably just lost my rant somewhere, so no worries.
Okay. And she did, or the entire listeners?
Sophia was behind the AI. The AI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's all
and
good.
so
all good. We're on.
What they developed then, Clint, and this is what everybody has to realize by watching a lot of rerun episodes of Stargate from the beginning, but especially focus on the episodes with the replicators. Replicators is actually a word that can be attributed to the archons from the old Gnostic texts, because these creatures, they don't have the power of creation. They can only do the simulations. And so they replicate. But they can only replicate what already exists from materials, matter, that was already there. So the scientists then started to take a look at, from the virus level up, these, and you got to call them self-assembling nanomachines. That's what tobacco mosaic virus was. You take Legos apart, you throw it in some acid water, and the damn thing comes together like magic. Well, they started looking at things like bacterial endotoxins. And if you take the component parts of a bacterial endotoxin, you disassemble it, and then you put it back into solution, the damn thing will reassemble. And so, all this nanotechnology, you wonder, did it come from aliens from outer space? Well, it might. I can't comment on that. But one thing I do know is they looked at life as we know it. They looked how it operated, and then they said, hey, we can co-opt that. And even though, I view endotoxins and bacteriophages and bacteria and viruses as potential weapons, they turn them into literal weapons to be used not by quote-unquote nature, but to be used by the human beings that looked at nature and said, hey, that'd make a damn good weapon.
So I got a trip for you here. Trippy word that you use. You said a replicant, right? Mm-hmm. Do you even know what that is?
Here we go.
So I think replicant. I immediately think of Harrison Ford in a Blade Runner, right?
Okay.
He has to kill the replicants, which are the clones that are out of control, basically. What is replication? Replication is a noun, and it's replicatio in Latin. It means reply, or see. It says see reply, so you get the root, which is reply, replication. It's an answer. It's a reply, particularly. It is return or repercussion of sound, etc. Right? So let's go to reply. Well, what's the root of this word? To fold. Remember that word?
Oh my God, you got me kidding me.
Yeah, to fold, that has to do with evolution, of course. That is to turn or send to answer, to make a return in words or writing to something said in or by another, or an answer, same thing, to return for an answer. What did we say at the beginning? What did we say at the beginning that a blockchain was?
Oh, yeah.
What is a block? A block is an answer, a solution, if you will, an answer to a problem. And every answer. So, in other words, we are creating the AI could be called a replicant.
It had to come from somewhere, and we could spend an entire show on its suspected origins. But it came through the agency, and that's another one of this overall thrust of your and my work. It had to come through the agency of man. The devil had to have hands with which to manipulate the material world.
Yeah, well, everything that we do is an answer. Essentially everything we do today is a fucking middle finger to God or nature, basically, to be, to accurate. Think about it. Everything that we create, everything that we do, every action we take is an answer to something. And in this case, literally, our answer is that we're no longer satisfied with reality. We are, to answer is to perform, right?
Can I read to you from the first Matrix movie?
To answer is to solve. Yeah, go for it.
Morpheus says, the pill you took is part of a trace program. It's designed to disrupt your input-output carrier signals so we can pinpoint your location. Neo says, what does that mean? Cypher says, it means buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye. And then Neo sees the mirror doing the weird stuff. Neo says, did you? And Morpheus says, have you ever had a dream, Neo, where you were so sure was real? What if you're unable to wake from that dream? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world? Neo says, this can't be. Morpheus says, be what? Be real? Trinity, then, because she's monitoring the machines as they're running the trace program, she says, and I've been on this since the moment I saw the movie, because I was doing, I've been exposed to court records from the 1800s. Trinity says, it's going into replication.
Wow.
Now, Clint, back in the day, these people that were involved in court cases in the 1800s had superior knowledge, and I'm talking just a man and woman off the street. They had superior knowledge of the way things were done in court. And a case would be adjudicated on, but there would be an issue that would be outstanding, and then you would see the slip of paper that would come up within the court case that would say, it is now in replication.
In law pleadings, to the reply of the plaintiff to the defendant's plea is a replication. Here's so this is why I say that the only thing we can do at this point is it's like sacrifice. I don't know how to say it. Sacrifice all the pleasures and joys that we get from technology, and I think the only thing because we're so corrupt, we're all so corrupt, we have to admit it, we're all based in technology at this point, and the only way that we can really truly stop this cycle, I think, in my personal view, is through our offspring, our children. I think that's the only thing we can do, and that is to keep them away from it entirely so that it never infects them and gives them this, sort of course that sets them away from their natural course. And I'll use the Matrix right back at you, and say, hey, look, when he sees reality, when he sees nature for the first time, and that the Matrix is gone, that all the comforts and joys and the clothes and everything is gone, and he has to eat, this goop for food, right? When he sees, that, what happens? Well, there has to be an apology issued. So Morpheus says, I feel I owe you an apology.
Right.
We have a rule. We never free a mind once it's reached a certain age. It's dangerous. The mind has trouble letting go. As long as the Matrix exists, the human race will never be free. As long as the AI exists, as long as technology exists, and whether that's a self-thinking AI, or we go back to the 70s and 80s when it didn't think for itself and we were the ones contributing to it, building it up to this point. That's still an artificial intelligence. It's just using us to build it, right? Either way, we're talking about a matrix. Matrix is just an artificial womb. It's just an artificial place, right? So he's literally saying that we only wake up children. Because children still have the capacity to break from the fictions, right? We all grow out of Santa Claus. We all grow out of the Easter Bunny. We don't believe in those things after a while because they don't, at some point that logic center of the brain comes to mind and says, hey, no. There's no reasonable way that Santa Claus comes to every fucking kid's house, down the chimney, that fat man. No way. It's not going to happen, right? It's a lie. Well, I say that the same thing can be said about the AI and technology and all this crap that we're subjecting our children to because we've been subjected to. We have to literally, we don't leave because we want to be saved. We leave because we want to save our future generations. That is honestly, that is the point that I've reached. That is the only answer. We're going to have to sacrifice. We're going to have to do things that we're not going to like, and we're going to have to. It's like a heroin addiction. This stuff is. We're going to have to go cold turkey, and we're going to have to get away from it at some point. We're going to have to make that choice, only so that we may save our future generations. Because what's the point otherwise?
Because I talk with people from all over the world, all different kinds of experience, and a lot of people are into prepping. They're into living off the grid. And some people always harangue me, you need solar. And I looked at my energy needs. Good God, do I consume a lot of energy.
Yeah.
But if I was to go solar, the cost to provide my energy would be so prohibitive. But then it's beyond money, Clint. I started looking seriously into solar technology. But it's high tech. And some of the best panels out there are based on gallium arsenide technology, which is semiconductor stuff that I used to work with in the 1980s. And it's so high-tech, one of the machines that we had to make these damn wafers, and we weren't making solar panels, we were making computer chips, one machine cost $1 million. So I'm looking at, how do you break away from the system? Well, going off-grid helps, but if you're still using grid technology, meaning the ability to make a gallium arsenide solar panel is still their technology. It's still their material. And if it breaks down, you don't have a chance in hell of repairing it. So we must get back to nature and work with nature. And it's going to be difficult because I do spend a lot of my time out in the out of doors, and it's not really a friendly place.
Well,
whether there were chemtrails or not.
It's not friendly to someone who thinks it's logical to use electricity, right? In other words, we're in a position where we've been trained again to think it's reasonable to live how we're living. in a position where it can't last. It's as you say, it's not. Well, they say it's not renewable. Well, that's actually a really good point when you think about it, because as you say, I can't build it. I can't build this computer I'm talking on.
Right. You can't fix a damn thing in it yourself.
That's ridiculous to live like that if you think about it. So you can't
plant a tree though, Clint. If you cut down a tree for fuel, you can plant a whole forest to replace that tree. That's renewable.
Or just don't cut it down at all. I mean, why do you don't need these things is the point. You need and want are completely different concepts, and we're in a position where we want. We live by our wants and our desires, but we pay no attention to what we actually need, which of course explains the health epidemic, right? I mean, it's easy to see what our problem is.
Screw you wordsmith! I'm going to have my double cheeseburger and supersize them fries.
and it's just going to magically appear at some window.
Yeah,
that I drive through.
That's my point.
Silly.
We got to get back to nature, because if you are part of the system, then when what I call the mousetraps for human beings, that's what I call cities, when they collapse, if they do collapse, if everybody's afraid, the big financial collapse. Hey, I've been living in poverty for decades, it would make no difference to me if it collapsed. It's already bad. Stop looking at the future. If cities were to collapse, what would you live on, man? You can't grow corn in concrete.
But isn't that the scary part, is that most people, I believe, will not give up the benefits of the city or the benefits of having such conveniences, even though it's right in front of their face that that is a form of support for the AI. That is a form of support for the mousetrap that you're stuck in. And it's like a rat laughing at the fact that half his body is crushed in a mousetrap, and yet you know what's come. You know that eventually it's gonna kill you. Or your future generations, especially. See, I think this is our big problem, is that we don't think of our future generations like, say, some of the wise elders of other cultures. We don't think in terms of that, and that explains why I can't buy a freaking two-bedroom home for less than $500,000.
Oh wow!
Right? I mean, why would I want to have my children grow up in a world where they have to pay $1 million by the time, for this tiny little piece of shit house that they're going to have to renovate, all because I want to make a profit. Because it has to keep going forward, it has to keep progressing, right?
You
Progress,
don't own it, do you?
Right? And there's that. There's that. Progress without end. Progress with no purpose. And it's just, none of it makes sense. And that's the beautiful thing about the concept of Jehovah, is the unchanging God. But the whole system of adversaria requires change at all times. It requires the progress. It requires going forward. It requires growth, right? Every corporation must grow or it's insolvent. And that includes cities, counties, states. Every corporation must grow. That's why you have the gross domestic product this is fucking ridiculous. This is when I say go back to nature, I mean go back to that which is unchanging, and don't change it. Yes, I understand you have to cut down a tree or two to make the wood to build your house, but other than that, preserve it. You are the protectors of nature, and you're being forced into a false sense of protectionism by the state, which seeks to destroy nature. The corporate structure.
Let's go all Amish, because the Amish actually say electricity is the devil. So
I agree.
A lot of them actually shun spark plugs. So if you didn't have a chainsaw, has anybody ever cut down a tree by hand? Because I have. And it's like, good God. This is why I say nature is not too, forgiving, and it's really rough out there. I've done a lot of hand labor, and if you're so Morpheus said, people are so inured in the system that they will fight to protect it. If you can't have your chainsaw, would you even bother to cut down a tree to make the lumber to build your house?
Well, answer me this. Now, if you had a society of people that would help build your barn, right? I think that would be a lot different. You could work 2 or 3 hours a day instead of 8 because everybody's doing their own thing, right? And helping each other. But let me ask you this, man. If I were to compare the cult of what was that cult that the guy was the spiritual leader of the cult and he had them all take poison at the end?
Oh, Jim Jones.
Yeah. So what's the difference between our society and obviously we're working towards this utopian society where we've solved all the energy problems, all the oil problems, but in the meantime we have to literally kill ourselves by destroying everything that supports us, right? Isn't this just a big fucking poison pill? That if we keep expanding, if we keep growing, and if we keep, using all of our resources, that we can finally attain some spiritual, wonderful utopia. But wait a minute. Everything's fucking used up at that point. How do we possibly find a utopia if everything's destroyed? Right? I mean, isn't this just a freaking cult that we're taking a poison pill so that we can...
The beautiful thing is, they just started the Church of the AI.
I know.
The very thing that you open this show with brings us full circle to the cult of the serpent that spoke itself into existence, worshiping itself.
Yep. And I hate to get all biblical, but this is exactly what the Bible talks about. I mean, this is to the T. This is quote unquote prophecy, and prophecy is nothing more than saying, "Hey, if you're stupid enough to do this, this will happen." I mean, that's all it is. This is fucking prophetic. I'm sorry if people don't like that, but this is exactly what. Maybe the AI is Satan. It's man's creation, obviously.
I don't know if it's Isaiah Revelation or if it's Revelation quoting Isaiah, but it's talking about the whore of Babylon and come out of her, O my people. I often think of that because our only solution is to get out of it, stop participating in it. Like I said, Clint, I think sometimes we are viewed as scolding people. And a lot of times I kick ass and I don't even bother to take names. So, I am a badass. But what we're doing is we're putting out information out there so people can realize what it is that they've been immersed in, because nobody's been telling them the truth. It's always been occulted. It's always been hypnosis and sedation. And this is their, shaking them awake and slapping them in the face. And I actually forgot what the hell I was going to talk about. What did you just finish saying? I triggered on it.
I don't know. Dude.
I didn't take notes.
I don't remember anything I've said on this show. What are you talking about?
We were talking about killing ourselves to achieve the goal. Oh, my God. I had a point to make, and I always do the backstory to set it up. Oh, well, keep going. We're killing ourselves.
Oh, well, it's just, and there's the other aspect of it, which is what we're going through now, which I call apocalypse, because when you look up the word apocalypse, it's knowledge, actually, is all that means. So we're actually, let's take Alex Jones as an example, right? You have disclosure without reaction, or disclosure without punishment, or disclosure without... So all the things that these guys are disclosing to us, they're... no one's getting in trouble. No one has ever gone to jail because Alex Jones exposed something. Nothing's ever stopped because Jones... Right? It's disclosure without purpose, or disclosure without effect, without... And so that could be, in my opinion, this concept of apocalypse, right? And then I also ask, hey, what is the Antichrist? If the Catholic Church, if the Pope is literally
I love this.
if the Pope is defined as the Antichrist, or the replacement of Christ, the vicar of Christ, i.e. Antichrist, which is what anti means, well then what is the Antichrist to the church? Right? What is the Antichrist of the Antichrist? I start to wonder if it's actually something good.
And dude, because you exposed on earlier programs what Defender of the Faith meant. And it's like, we live in dog Latin opposite day. Nobody knows what end is up. And I think I remembered my point. My point was this, is that if you're working for the man, you are part of the AI. You're supporting it. Society was built for the AI. Infrastructure was built for the AI. Every man, woman, and child on this, whatever we're on, flat earth or sphere, it doesn't matter. Everybody in this plane of existence is serving the beast or working for themselves.
And with that knowledge, which again, the church would call apocalypse, right? The apocalypse would be knowledge. Knowledge would cause people to stop attending and being members of such an artificial person as a corporation as these religions are, right? So to them, the apocalypse is a horrible thing. But I'm thinking, wait a minute, if apocalypse means true knowledge, wait, no wonder you're afraid of it, you religion, you false god. Right? And now you say, as you said, we have the church of AI.
Yeah.
So this is just the new Babylon, right? Worshipping of false gods. Right? Instead of nature, you're worshipping anti-nature, right? So what's the difference? No wonder the church is afraid of the Antichrist or the apocalypse, right? Because was
it Mad Magazine or Crack Magazine that had Spy versus Spy? Because within that series, they would have a counter spy. And it's like, as a kid, I had to pull it back and go, oh, that just means he's back to being a spy.
Oh, forget which side you're on, yeah.
Oh, good God, I'm writing that now. Yeah, that's the whole Jim Jones thing. Forgot what side you're on. I like that.
Well, I'll tell you, man. We've got about 7 minutes left here.
Okay.
I don't know if we've come to any solutions here or not, but I think it's pretty obvious what needs to happen here. This thing needs to be shut down, right? I mean, are you willing to give up Skype? Are you willing to give up your email? Are you willing to give up these things, streaming video and that to save your life and that of your future generations? That's the question I guess we have to pose here.
So what I wrote to some of my red hens was this. Clint.
Red hens, by the way, are Patrick's research team that volunteers to help him research.
Thank you. Nice plug for them. Love them. I'd be out of business. I would not need computers, electronics, research if we were able to defeat the vaccine foe. And basically, I'm working to put myself out of business. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. I wouldn't need a computer. I'd be out, digging in the dirt. That would be my entire life's mission, is to put cabbage seed from the 1880s in the dirt. And I don't need Monsanto. I don't need fertilizer. I don't need hybrid seeds. I don't need them. And you were talking about the difference between needs and wants. I don't need that. So in a heartbeat, Clint, I would abandon all electricity that is the devil.
And I think I am starting to think that a lot of people are coming to the understanding that is what has to happen. It doesn't mean you have to give up all technology. I mean, a plow is technology. Sure. A handheld, a scythe, a shovel is technology. So don't get me wrong. I'm not. I'm just saying this artificialness, this digital, wasteland that we do need to get away from that. I think a lot of people are coming to that conclusion that it is, quote unquote, the devil in in the way that if you take that as a reasonable, concept, and it is the adversary to being in nature. I don't know how else to put that really. So I think there's a lot of people out there which the Bible would probably call the remainder or the remnant, right? And the thing about, I love this word because there is no remainder to the remainder. What is the remainder but what is left over after everything's been added and subtracted? Those who refuse to go forward and progress into this hell that we're creating on earth and go back to nature. You would be part of God's children or God's sons of God. And again, it's not a religious concept even. It's just you're sons of nature. You're back to where you belong. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful, wonderful concept. And if we can just, I don't know where to end this, except to say Patrick's website is vaccinefraud.com, and what we're really talking about here is a corruption of the blood, everything that you inject. And when you're talking about nanotechnology, it is, of course, a corruption of the body, which is a corruption of the blood. So vaccinefraud.com, Patrick has, some ridiculous amount of books that he's written, which are great reference books, telling the story. I think his final one was Continuum.
Continuum, yep.
Yeah, which basically they're must reads. I don't know what to say, and of course,
as is your book.
Oh, thanks. Strawmanstory.info. You can download my book for free. It's called Strawman. But yeah, these are the pillars. These are the pillars of the fiction. You have the time domain, which doesn't actually exist. You have the persona, which doesn't actually exist. You have the valuation, i.e. mammon, which, the value of things, which doesn't actually exist. And I say that in nature. It doesn't exist in nature, right? These are all the things that prop up this system. And of course, now we're getting into this, intelligence, which is not knowledge, digital information, which is not knowledge. It's just information. The form of knowledge without any substance, without any spirituality. So,
writing that one down. Intelligence, knowledge, and what else did you say?
Information, intelligence.
Just information.
Intelligence requires no knowledge. It's just, we had good intelligence that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, but it wasn't knowledge.
And I make a distinction between knowledge and wisdom as well.
Sure.
Cool, man.
Anyway,
well,
man.
I really hope this went through because this is one of those magical times, man. We did it again.
Good show. Thanks for coming on. It has been a while since we've talked. And I figured,
Is there a point to all this?
I'm gonna
Let's
not
find a
talk
point.
to it before.
Is this real? Or is this just a ride?
The world is like a ride. You think it's real, or just a ride.
We can change it any turn we want. It's only a choice between fear and love.
The world is like a ride. You think it's real, or just a ride.
We can change it any turn we want. It's only a choice between fear and love.
Life goes up and down, round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored.